Water. Water is surely life. It fuels the body and it nourishes all living things. Jamaica Magazine joins others around the globe today in commemorating World Water Day. On the agenda, government's thrust to make potable water accessible to all Jamaicans. And inside issues, answers on why the International Monetary Fund Agreement is necessary for economic growth. Hi, I'm Theodore Henry. It promises to be an informative show. Grab a glass of water while listening to this message.
Measles, mumps and rubella are potentially dangerous childhood diseases. Parents, ensure your children get the MMR vaccine to protect them. The first shot should be given when children are between 12 and 15 months old, and another before they start school. Women of childbearing age should also ensure they get the MMR vaccine, as they could transmit dangerous conditions to their children if infected while pregnant. To know more, visit your nearest clinic or health center or contact the Ministry of Health.
The International Monetary Fund, the budget debate, fiscal prudence. You may think these things are of no relevance to you, but as you'll see in a little while, they very much connect to your pocket and how much money you have to spend. Up next, financial analyst Ralston Hyman brings clarity to why the IMF is necessary and the importance of the National Growth Strategy.
Thanks for joining us for Issues and Answers. I'm Ian Boyne. We continue our look on the economy on the 2015-2016 budget, and we have with us today the country's preeminent financial journalist, Ralston Hyman. We thank you for your company. Ralston, good to have you on the
Thank you very much,
program.
Yeah,
Ralston, first, there was a lot of talk about growth and a lot of questioning as to where is the government's growth strategy. Is there a connection between the passing of IMF tests and growth, or is that irrelevant to the growth process?
Okay, let us first define what we're talking about. Economic growth is an expansion of the country's output, or the value of goods and services we're producing. Now, there's a connection between the government's macroeconomic policy and economic growth. The IMF agreement, or the agreement that we have with the International Monetary Fund, which is the lender of last resort, simply translated, when nobody is willing to lend you, the IMF is the only institution that will be willing to lend you. It means that in order to get that money from the IMF and to continue that relationship, it means that you'll have to meet some performance requirements, because you must remember, like going to the doctor, you must be ill while you go to the IMF. Yes. Now, under the current agreement we have with the IMF and the government of Jamaica, as well as the private sector, the trade union movement and civil society, they look at the problems ailing the Jamaican economy over the last 40 years. Over the last 40 years, it is said that the economy only grew by 0.7%. One of the problems that were diagnosed is that the government's debt, the debt of the country, is too high. When we approached the IMF for this current agreement, the debt to GDP ratio was 145%. Simply put, for every dollar of goods and services that the country was producing in 2012, we owe $1.45. Now, the IMF and the government of Jamaica and the private sector, civil society, decided that in order to grow the economy, the government will have to reduce its debt burden. When the government has a high debt burden, it means that you'll have to pay more taxes, and more of the taxes will have to be diverted to service the debt, rather than to provide basic social services, pay public sector workers. So what we're seeing is that the major objective of the IMF agreement is to reduce the debt to GDP ratio. Now, the targets are to bring it down to 96% by 2020 and to the internationally accepted norm of 60% by 2025. So apart from reducing the debt burden to facilitate growth, another part of the strategy is to improve the business environment. because they all diagnosed that in order to improve growth, you'll have to improve the business environment, make it easier for people to form businesses, make it easier for people to access finance for businesses. So that is why we have things like the securities interest in personal property, where a small business person can now use movable collateral. That is why we have the insolvency bill coming, like America's Chapter 11, Chapter 14, so that when you are running a business and you get into trouble, you can hold off your creditors while you reorganize the business, and people do not believe that you're a thief or something like that. So it encourages entrepreneurship. So the agreement calls for the government to borrow less, spend less, collect more in taxes in order to balance the budget. When you have a budget deficit, that is the difference between what the government is collecting from revenue and grants and what it is spending. Whenever there's a big difference, it has to borrow that difference. When you borrow that difference, it drives up interest rates. So now that we see we have a balanced budget, the budget deficit this year is 4.8 billion or 0.3% of GDP. Then there's another deficit which we call the current account deficit. That measures the difference between monies that we're getting from the rest of the world during any given year and the monies that we're paying out. We get money from the rest of the year based on what we call the trade deficit, the difference between our physical imports and our physical exports, bauxite, sugar, banana. When we have that, we call that the trade deficit. Then we get the money from tourism and what we get from what we call remittance flows, Jamaicans living and working abroad sending back money. Capital flows from multilateral institutions and from investors. The difference between that is called the current account deficit. We also see that deficit being reduced from 14% of the total value of all goods and services we were producing in 2012 to 5.3% of the total value of all goods and services we call GDP this fiscal year. Next fiscal year it is projected to drop to 2.3% because of the lower oil prices. So there's a connection between the IMF arrangement and economic growth. So apart from the government doing these things to lay the platform for growth, the actual investing for growth is supposed to be done by the private sector. The private sector is said to be the engine of growth. So the government's job is to lay the foundation for growth by reducing its heavy borrowing, keeping interest rates low, and improving the business environment, making it easier for you to pay your taxes, making it easier for you to form a business, making it easier for entrepreneurs to access capital, reducing the cost of energy. That's the function of the government under this arrangement.
And the government has been implementing some of those initiatives.
They have been successfully doing a lot of those things. As we said before, fiscal deficit, 0.3% of GDP. The overall public sector deficit, which takes into account the deficit of central government, JUTC, National Water Commission, 0.2% of GDP. Current account deficit, 5.3% of GDP. Inflation, or the increase in the average level of prices, is now the lowest ever. For the fiscal year to date, it is 3.4%. Point to point, that is February of 2014 to February of 2015, it is 4.5%. And for February, it was minus 0.7%.
It's a gold mine of information. It is the country's preeminent financial journalist. And we have asked him to come to talk to us about economic issues, to educate us on these critical matters. We take a break, but we'll be right back.
Employers, tired of waiting in long lines at the tax office? Wait no further. Government is making it easier for you to pay taxes. As of January 1, 2015, file your employer's annual returns online. No lines, no hassle. Tax Administration Jamaica TAJ will be implementing the mandatory electronic filing of all employers' annual returns. So get with the program and save time and energy. For more information, call 1-888-TAX-HELP. That's 1-888-829-4357 or visit jamaicatax.gov.jm.
Welcome back. We're talking economic issues. We have with us financial analyst Ralston Hyman. Ralston, there are people saying that yes, the government is passing IMF tests, but what about the people's test? Is there a connection between the IMF test and the people's test?
Yes, there's a connection between the IMF test and the people's test. If you don't pass the IMF test, you can't pass the people's test. And here's why. The IMF provides money for balance of payment support. In other words, the IMF provides money to help the country to pay its bills internationally. But an arrangement with the IMF also provides money from the World Bank, which lends money directly to the government of Jamaica to build schools, to build roads, to build hospitals, as well as money from the Inter-American Development Bank, which is used for policy-based loans. It also paves the way for grants from the European Union, which is used for all kinds of things, poverty reduction, crime fighting, and all of those things. So if you don't pass the IMF test, you don't get those funds.
And you won't get the funds to deal with the social sector.
The social sector, which is everything about the people. So it is important that you pass the IMF test.
So there's a direct relationship passing the IMF test.
Yes, and fighting poverty, fighting crime, building schools, all of those things that the people depend on. Additionally, the investments that we need in the private sector to create jobs. What we are seeing is that foreign investors are investing more in Jamaica than domestic investors. If you don't pass the IMF test, you won't get the foreign direct investment.
And we have the highest FDI flow, foreign direct investment, for the last 5 years.
Precisely.
Yeah. This is connected
to the passing of the IMF test. We also got 800 million to borrow from the international capital markets
at the lowest rates ever.
At the lowest rates ever after Christine Lagarde came here and gave us the endorsement.
Yes.
It is important that we pass the IMF test. During the previous dispensation, we only passed 2 IMF tests, and it resulted in a termination of funding from many of those agencies and significant problems for the Jamaican economy. So it is important that we pass the IMF test. There is no disconnect between the IMF test and the people's test.
Yes. Some people say, though, Ralston, that the statistics and the data seem to be going in the right direction, but they are not feeling the benefits of this. They hear that inflation is low, they hear unemployment is low, but they're not really feeling the effects of the government's economic reform program. What would you say to them?
Well, I mean, if you're in a deep hole, you'll have to take your time and climb out. So you could have been deeper in the hole weren't it for the policies being pursued by the government. Now, take, for example, inflation. When inflation is at 3%, it means that consumers can buy more for the dollar.
Well, people say when they go in the supermarket, Ralston, they see prices going up more than 3%. So it's counterintuitive.
Well,
address that.
What we like to tell them that is that the inflation number is an average. So you'll still see prices going up individually, but on average, based on the basket of goods and services that is used, prices are going down. Yeah, and that's good. And if you look again, you will see that for the last quarter of last year, the exchange rate was moving adversely. What we're seeing in the last 2 months is that the exchange rate is appreciating because of the lower levels of inflation and the fall in the current account deficit.
So the dollar is strengthening.
The dollar is strengthening. The people who buy gasoline, despite the fact that there'll be a $7 per litre tax today, they are still paying less than 6 months ago. The hairdressers who operate their beauty parlors, they're telling us that their electricity bills have dropped from 20,000 per month to 11,000 per month. So the people are feeling it. Yes.
So there are measurable positive effects that are taking place as a result of the economic reform.
Yes, as a result of the reform program.
Reform program.
Yes.
And you don't believe there's a viable alternative to this program? Because sometimes people wonder why some people just don't bother taking loans from the IMF and just go away. Tell the IMF to,
Well, I mean, if we're prepared for the outages and the shortages and the social unrest, then we can always do that. But there's no
alternative to them.
Yeah, there's no viable alternative to the policies that we're pursuing right now. But if we decide our mind that we wanted to see some outages and shortages and confusion and social unrest, then we can take that route.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the IMF as a lender of last resort.
Without the IMF agreement, the country would shut down because you won't get any money from the World Bank, the IDB, the European Union. Investors will be looking elsewhere and not Jamaica. So we must decide.
And once the international credit rating agencies downgrade us, investors are not going to be looking to us.
There'll be a run on the dollar. Nobody would know where the dollar would end up. Interest rates would skyrocket. You follow me? Inflation would accelerate. And there'll be social unrest.
Address those who say, well, we need more stimulus. The government needs to do more, provide more stimulus to the economy.
Well, the stimulus that we need is more private sector investments. The government is in no position to provide fiscal stimulus.
The government is no position?
No position because of the high debt burden. And the major objective of the IMF agreement is to reduce that debt burden from the current level of 139% to 60% by 2025.
So it's not a matter of the government providing incentives.
And it's not a matter that the government is wicked. The government is just not in a fiscal position to do that. Just as simple as that. If we had a debt to GDP ratio of 60% or 70%, then we would have been in a better position to do that. America can do that because its debt to GDP ratio is 100%, and it has the currency of international last resort. Yes. So the Americans can do that, but Jamaicans can't do that. The Europeans can do that because their currencies are hard currencies. We cannot do that in Jamaica, and their debt to GDP ratio is lower than Jamaica's. Yes. Right.
We have to bring you back to continue this economic education. The country's preeminent financial journalist, Ralston Hyman, talking to us about economic issues, educating us about these important matters. Next week, I'll be back. Until then, Ian Bourne wishing you a pleasant day.
Which government organization offers you exceptional customer service? A tax office, police station, hospital, post office, health center or NIS office? Vote for your favorite public sector organization in the Public Sector Customer Service Competition. Call toll-free 1-888-991-2752. Visit cabinet.gov.jm and follow the instructions. Or drop your entry form at government agencies island-wide. Votes close April 30, 2015. Let your voice be heard.
The Ministry of Science, Technology, Energy and Mining has a number of projects to undertake in the 2015-2016 fiscal year. Get the details as outlined in the estimates of expenditure.
A little over $8.9 billion. Total expenditure budget for the Ministry of Science, Technology, Energy and Mining in the 2015-2016 financial year. The money will continue key projects and implement new ones within the sector and offset operational costs and compensation packages for workers. During the fiscal year 2015-2016, the Ministry of Science, Technology, Energy and Mining will use a combined $4.1 million to promote and encourage investment in metallic and non-metallic minerals. A further $20 million will be used to foster and advance the national policy and strategy for science and technology. More capacity strengthening follows with the increased spending power of the Scientific Research Council, SRC. Among other things, the SRC will contribute to the technological development of priority sectors and provide quality scientific technology solutions. Over $27 million will go towards the Earthquake Unit to do further seismic research. This year, the unit will publish a document on Jamaica's seismic code and maps, contribute data to the Caribbean Tsunami Warning Program, implement an effective earthquake early warning program, and release information to guide the National Building Code. In the area of energy, the Rural Electrification Program, now renamed National Energy Solutions, will construct 30 kilometers of pole line extensions in 10 parishes and wire 1,000 houses to facilitate formal connection to the national grid, reducing the remaining 3% of unconnected areas. Other works will get done through funding from bilateral and multilateral partners. These are in the areas of energy security, efficiency and conservation. To advance the information, communications and technology sector ICT, the eGov Jamaica unit has been allocated $1.4 billion to support initiatives such as the National Identification Systems, Human Capital Management System, Enterprise Content Management, and the Government Network, GovNet. With its budget of $250 million, the e-learning project will continue building out the technology infrastructure and lend support services to the Ministry of Education. $700 million will be used to extend the Tablets in Schools project. 17,920 computer tablets will be distributed in 25 additional institutions island-wide. Work under the Enhancing the ICT Regulatory Environment project will enable the government to facilitate future broadband development while tailoring market interventions to complement private sector investments. Meanwhile, $70 million is allocated to provide more opportunities for young persons who are skilled in animation. Under the Youth Employment in Digital and Creative Industries project, 190 computers, 385 tablets, 335 2D software licenses, and 40 software upgrades for an animation laboratory will be purchased. It will also allow the procurement of consultancy services for animation training programs and facilitate the development of Digital Jam and Kingstoon. So as the Ministry of Science, Technology, Energy and Mining puts strategic plans in place to strengthen its capacity, improve human capital development and social infrastructure, and facilitate investments, government is also putting the funds in place to carry them out.
Parents, assist your children with their schoolwork. That means help. Don't do it for them. Every assignment, such as school-based assessments, SBAs, should be written and researched by the students. Doing the assignment is not helping your child, but rather teaching him or her to take shortcuts and even being dishonest.
SBAs are expected to be developmental. They are aligned to the syllabus, and it is really to assist the students in developing those fundamental concepts for them to do well in the examination itself.
Doing your child's assignment is a breach of the educational regulations, which carry severe sanctions. Be of help. Don't be dishonest.
This is the land of wood and water, but it takes work to direct this water from its natural sources into the pipes of households all across the island. Every day, government is making it possible for more Jamaicans to have access to potable water. Watch this.
As we work to improve the delivery of drinking water across Jamaica, we will be even closer to achieving what we call our Vision 2030 goal.
In the 2014-2015 fiscal year, that work has brought potable water to thousands of Jamaicans in communities right across the island.
The rainwater harvesting system is a welcome investment and is expected to alleviate the water challenges that you have experienced in the past.
That was in June 2014 when Minister Pickersgill commissioned the $27 million Gibraltar rainwater harvesting system into service. The project provided more than 700 residents in Gibraltar and other areas in St. Catherine with a source of potable water for domestic, agricultural and commercial activities.
I'm confident that this project will add to the productivity of your communities. This in turn will help to increase employment opportunities and development within your communities.
The new water system, we appreciate it very much, and it done a lot to us because plenty of us wasn't getting the water rightly, and now that we are getting it good now, so we are very thankful for it.
Alma is just one of more than 3,000 residents benefiting from the upgraded Burnt Savannah Knoxwood water supply system. It was commissioned into service in October 2014 after $59.6 million in upgrading works. The Port C rainwater catchment tank in St. Elizabeth was also refurbished in late 2014. Extensive repairs were done to the concrete catchment area, the fencing and wall footing, while 800 meters of pipes were laid and a concrete covering built for the tank.
Everywhere I go in this country, no matter whether the parish is traditionally dry or experiences above average rainfall, I tell residents that we must return to rainwater harvesting as one method of ensuring our water security in the face of increasing and intensifying droughts which are one of the impacts of climate change. I welcome the rehabilitation of this rainwater harvesting tank in Port C as an important addition to the climate change adaptation initiatives that are being pursued elsewhere in the island.
At least 1,500 residents in southern St. Elizabeth now have greater access to potable water due to the upgrading of the Port C tank, which has the capacity to store 270,000 gallons of water. Others are benefiting from the similarly upgraded Rose Hall rainwater catchment tank in the parish. Over in Westmoreland, more than 5,000 residents are now receiving regular water supply after the commissioning of the Barneyside tank. The 40-odd-year-old storage tank was refurbished at a cost of $4.3 million to store 150,000 gallons of water. In February 2015, meanwhile, improved service came for residents served by the Martha Bray treatment plant in Trelawney after it was rehabilitated and a supporting facility constructed. It can provide a total of 11 million gallons of water per day. Almost 200,000 residents are benefiting.
While the NWC is not the only water provider, it is estimated that it now provides water to more than 70% of the population of Trelawney. This is indeed a significant improvement over the previous decade.
Significant improvement also came for Ewerton and Mount Rossa residents in St. Catherine after the rehabilitation of the Mount Rossa distribution pipeline and repairs to the Mount Rossa and Ewerton reservoirs.
The project also undertook the installation of 1,500 meters, including the infrastructure to enable legal connections for persons who were previously obtaining water illegally.
Over 6,000 residents are now able to get potable water as a result of the $460 million project. And in March, the last month of the fiscal year, the Clarkstown Water Supply Pipeline Replacement Project was officially commissioned into service. Other work was done in the 2014-2015 fiscal year to bring water to Jamaicans. These included the $1.83 billion Port Antonio Water Sewerage and Drainage Project. While touring in January 2015, the Water Minister said residents and businesses should soon be able to enjoy the full benefits of that project.
Work on the project has been substantially completed. 18 kilometers or 100% of the pipelines have been laid and commissioned into service.
Meanwhile, in 2014, the NWC signed a $1 billion contract to build the artificial groundwater recharge system for the Rio Cobre hydrological basin in the Innswood area of St. Catherine. The work includes building a raw water treatment facility with the capacity to treat 8 million gallons of water per day, generally increasing groundwater quantity and quality.
This aquifer recharge project is absolutely vital to the water security of St. Catherine and to the Kingston metropolitan area.
And work continued on the $12.6 million Lucy pipeline replacement and non-revenue water reduction project. It will facilitate improved water flow from the Great River Treatment Plant to all the areas along the corridor leading into Negril. When the 2015-2016 estimates of expenditure was tabled in Parliament on February 19, it revealed an allocation of approximately $835.74 million to maintain and upgrade Jamaica's water supply system. That means more scenes like those played out in fiscal year 2014-2015. It means even more will be done to upgrade the access to potable water for all Jamaicans.
Our last fact on water for you. Drinking water is like washing out your insides. The water will cleanse the system, fill you up, decrease your caloric load, and improve the function of all your tissues. Scientist Kevin R. Stone reminding us of the importance of water. The information continues to flow on our website, jis.gov.jm. You may also follow us on Twitter at JIS News. Our YouTube channel, Watch GIS, has loads of videos and interviews. We'll be back on your favorite TV station tomorrow. Until then, I'm Theodore Henry. On behalf of the hardworking team here at the JIS, have a wonderful Sunday.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.